So marketing is made up of 7 P's, okay? And when you're doing your marketing as an entity, you have to look at all these 7 P's. You do not just say, I'm going to produce coffee, and you leave it at that. You have to go further and say, I'm going to produce coffee, and my coffee will be the cheapest on the market, which is price. And then I'll distribute my coffee to supermarkets, which is place and distribution. And then you will say, again, I'm going to advertise the coffee on TV, or no, I'll not advertise the coffee, I'll just do digital, okay, which is promotion. So those elements are supposed to be there in marketing. So when you talk about branding, on the other hand, now you're talking about a product or a service which has already been created. And branding now looks at how, first of all, what are we going to call this product? The name, okay? If you're making coffee, what is your coffee going to be called? Is it going to be called Zam Coffee? So you identify that name and say, I think we should call it Zam Coffee. Why Zam Coffee? Again, you have to elaborate and think further. Why Zam Coffee? Because it's Zambian, it's coffee, you know? So Zambian coffee. Oh, no, it's not a good name. It doesn't sound good. There's already Zam Beef. Other people mistake it for Zam Beef. And we are not part of Zam Beef. We are
Zam Coffee.
Zam Coffee. So no, let's not go that way. So let's call it Coffee Zam, you know?
Coffee Zam.
And then you change, or you say, no. Again, the Zam, no, let's call it Lusaka Coffee, because it's produced in Lusaka. And it will help, you know, promote the city and stuff. So you start thinking about the name. And the name is one of the biggest assets of a brand. It's a name, okay?
The name of the brand is
the name of the product.
Of the product.
The name of the product. So like in this case, this is water, but this is Aqua Clear. That's a brand name for this water. It's Aqua Clear. And they have their own reasons why they came up with Aqua Clear. I think Aqua stands for water. Clear means there's no date or anything. So in their thinking, maybe that's how they came up with Aqua Clear. And then you've got several other water, H2O, you've got Manzi. All those are brand
different
names.
Brands.
Okay, but they're all water. So now the key thing about branding, you must understand, and when we talk about the name itself must be catchy. It must be something that is easily recognized. Don't go about and call your product or your service, your shop, Tafutika Maningi. You know, there's that negative connotation to the name. So you must be very, very, very careful what kind of name you come up with.
You give for your
brand or for your product or for your service. You must be very, very careful.
Can we hold that thought? I want to bring Jonathan into this. So, Mr. David Kombe has told us how important the brand is and how sensitive naming your product or services. As a digital marketer, how has the emergence of digital marketing technologies and channels like Facebook, Google, how has that changed the way we build brands?
I think the biggest change, frankly, is that before you would sit, for example, with my colleague here and some experts, and you'd sit in a room with a client and you'd talk, you'd have a few focus groups, and you'd say, right, okay, we're going to call it this. What the digital world, especially the world of social media, has done has changed how we have to research what brands should be, because as opposed to previously where carrying out research was generally a very expensive exercise, and if you're developing a brand new brand from start, maybe your startup capital is $5,000, frankly you have limited money to do proper research on your brand, certainly as much as you should really do. Where the whole social digital thing has come is it means, first of all, when you're developing a brand, you have a ready pool of information where you can look and consult and draw from and learn from. I mean, even if we take, for example, let's take past branding mistakes. Previously, you would probably need to have access to marketing experts. You would need to read many textbooks, etc. Whereas now, there's much more history that you can refer to. No matter our level of experience, there's always something new to learn. And we can use online media, online libraries to look at case studies of what went wrong. For instance, those of you who are interested in those kind of brand disasters, look up Chevy Nova, one of the biggest naming disasters in marketing ever. In brief, Chevy Nova was a massive success of a car in America. They decided it was selling so well they would take it to Mexico. It didn't sell at all until someone explained to Chevy that in Spanish, Nova means doesn't go. Okay? And to David's point, that's why the brand naming is so important. You can't assume that your brand name is exactly on. And the biggest change in social marketing is actually more for the established brands, because when they get it wrong and they extend their overconfidence, they get it very wrong, and the public turns back and is able to hit them with the full force of the consumer. And I can give you two very strong examples. One is Gap. I'm sure you're familiar with the Gap logo.
Yes.
That's not the logo they actually wanted to have right now. They spent, and I'm sure David probably knows the figure better than I do, it was nearly $1 million on a new brand concept. Put it out first on social media, and their active, however many million followers, slated them completely. And they basically had to can the whole plans.
So $1 million wasted on a bad logo.
Yeah, bad logo, bad brand change that didn't fit with what the consumers knew of the brand. Another more recent and much more controversial example is Pepsi and their quasi-racial TVC ad that they had recently. They thought they were being funny. The public didn't think they were being funny. And they got immense backlash, and then they had to go around trying to delete it off digital, which, as you know, is not an easy thing to do, and try and eliminate it from many sources as possible, which, of course, they've failed to do. It's still doing the rounds.
So you've mentioned the fact that digital channels help with the researching of what a brand should be. Mr. Kombe, traditionally, from an agency point of view, how does one build a brand? How does one even go about it?
Like I said, the first step of building a brand is coming up with a very nice name, which must have a positive connotation, something that is good for people to look at or feel or experience. And naming a product is something that it depends again on you. Depending on the product, if it's an environmental friendly product, you may want to bring in aspects of environmental friendly. If it's a product that quenches thirst when you drink it, then you may want to bring in some elements of the benefits of the product. So some people use benefits of the products to come up with a name. Okay, so they identify it's feel good, or you can run faster, and then they think, okay, so we can run this and we call it this because you can do ABCD with it. So the name is one thing that you need, and then once you've identified the name, you need also to identify now what we call the logo, the colors, and the typeface. How do you want this name to be presented? So this is where you go to experts to help you design the logo of the brand. Just like this one, Aqua. The name is there, but there's a logo up there. And that logo, you can see it's got dark blue, light blue, and some white in it, which, if I look at it quickly, symbolizes water and stuff like that. So again, when you're building the logo, you have to look at the industry you are in, or exactly what your brand is trying to do, and then you create a logo around that. And when you're creating logos, remember that there are colors, and every color has got a meaning. You don't just pick a color. You remember long time ago we used to have the mobile phone network Zen. They used black, and black doesn't go for Zambians because black is associated with death and evil, and for that kind of thing. But you see, in the Muslim country, in Dubai and those areas, black to them means something different. So they go with black. But then when they bring it here, people are like, black, no. So again, you have to be very careful with the colors that you pick when you are doing your naming and your thing and stuff like that. And then also the typeface. The typeface basically is the way the name will be written. There are different typefaces, okay? Don't get a typeface that people will not read. They won't be able to see the name and they have to wear glasses to read, because different typefaces, you know, mean different things. If you are in a creative environment, for example, we believe in creativity, relaxation, you know, innovation, ideas. So you'll find a situation where typefaces are fancy and stuff like that. When you go into the financial sector, their typefaces are serious because they want to show you that they are serious. So when you look at Barclays, it's big, it's bold, it's written. Zanaco is big, it's bold, you won't find Zanaco written in a fancy, like a wedding card or, you know, because they are trying to tell you that they are serious people. When you talk about fashion, him and I, when you wear your jeans, I'm sure you'll see the way your jean is written in a fancy way and stuff like that, you know. So again, that's fashion. So there's an element of typeface that comes in. There's an element of the name itself, the colors. But the most important thing about branding is, what does your brand stand for? Water is water, okay? If I got this water and I got Aqua Savannah, the difference is just clear and Savannah, eh? They're all aqua. So that one is Aqua Savannah, the other one is Aqua Clear, the other one is H2O. What is the difference between those products? They are all water. So the first thing you need to do before you build your brand is to have what you call brand positioning. What does your brand stand for? What does it offer to the consumer that the other products are not offering? And that you must define yourselves. If you're selling sugar, what is it about your sugar that is different with Zambia sugar or Kafue sugar? What is it about your sugar? If you're selling salt, why is your salt better or different from the other salt? And these are elements that you need to identify. Because maybe your salt has got a little bit of some spice. When you put the salt in the relish, it also comes with some certain spice, so it spices up the food. So you should use that element to distinguish yourself from everybody else.
Actually, with that in mind you, this is Mr. Kombe's idea. So if you decide to make salt with spices, you own him at least a good lunch. Huh?
But let me just finish on
Uh-huh.
on that issue of the branding. So the repositioning is what's important. Often we make a mistake to think that a brand is a product. No, a brand and a product are different things. A product is just any water you can drink. That's a product. But for you to drink Aqua Clear, there's something different about Aqua Clear that is just not ordinary water. And you must find that in your brands. You must find that in your services and in your products. What makes you different from the next guy on the corner? Okay? Mercedes-Benz, for example, they've positioned themselves as a car of comfort. So, because they have positioned themselves as a car of comfort, they're expensive. Because only those people who want comfort will buy it. So if you don't like comfort, then don't go for the Mercedes-Benz. If you want speed, then go for the BMW. Because they've positioned themselves as a car that it's got power and speed and that kind of vibe. So if you are youthful and you want to drive and feel that energy, then buy a BMW. If you're a chief executive and really, will you buy a BMW? You will probably say, Mercedes-Benz, that's for me. you know.
Picking up on the concept of positioning, you have explained it so well. I just want to involve our new panelist from PR Girl Media. It's Shishimba Nyambe. And Shishimba, you have built a very interesting brand. You've organized events, very bespoke events, such as the Lusaka July. How important is positioning in building a brand, or building your brand?
Yeah. Following up, hi everybody. Hi. Following on the brand positioning, I think the other thing that really stood out to me is brand identity. A lot of the time, people don't realize that brand identity is very linked to brand positioning, because if on the first communications that you do about your brand, you need to differentiate yourself from other brands. What sets you apart? And I think if you are consistent with that, if it's the price, if it's the comfort, if it's the speed of the car, you have to be consistent with that. And I think then in turn, people or the consumer accept that about your brand. So coming into PR Girl and how we've tapped into that is from the get-go, I think even the name raised a few eyebrows. I had a few conversations with colleagues that I'd worked with before, and they would say, why PR Girl? Why not PR Lady? Why not, I could have changed my mind. I could have said, okay, I think Lady sounds better, and a lot of people will criticize and have comments about your brand when you're just speaking about it for the first time, when you're trying to position yourself in a market that has competition, because competition is very natural. It's the reality of any market. So you will have a lot of people compare you to other brands that are similar, but you have to be consistent. You have to keep reminding people that you're different and that your identity is what you keep emphasizing on. And then it just naturally happens that the consumer understands you for who you say you are.
Picking up on that, before you joined us, we discussed the differences between marketing, advertising, and branding. We've gone in depth about how do you build a brand, or what are some of the building blocks of brands. Where does PR slot in, especially if I'm an SME? I'm an SME, I'm taking part in the Nyamuka competition. I'm getting confused now. You've told me about marketing, you've told me about advertising, you've told me about branding. How does PR fit into all of this? What is PR?
Yeah, so that is the number one confusion in the communications industry, differentiating between advertising, marketing, and PR. So I'll try not to bore everyone. I don't know if everyone in here is a communications expert, but I'll put it in really layman terms. Advertising is being very aggressive, buy, the 4 kwacha 99, that's advertising. They're trying to convince you that one.
That's your take on advertising.
That's advertising. They're trying to convince you to buy. It's all about the sale. And then marketing is off advertising as well, but their focus is also sales driven. But it looks more at the relationship between sales and the consumer actually purchasing the product, but then also from a very one-sided perspective. It's about the brand selling. It's very one-sided. I don't think anyone ever asked in a marketing advert or to the consumer, how did you feel about purchasing this? PR goes a little further because it actually asks those questions. It leaves room for the consumer to give feedback. So what I would consider PR is a two-way flow of communication between the brand and the consumer. That's where, say for example, if you have a Facebook page, it will say, tell us about your experience. How was it? How was your stay at our hotel? How was your meal? That's actually the brand inviting a two-way flow of communication. So that's not advertising, that's not marketing. That's saying we're trying to build a relationship with you because we want you to come back. And we also want to improve the product and we value your feedback. So PR is relationship driven as opposed to advertising and marketing. PR is all about, and it is important for SMEs because advertising and marketing comes at a cost. PR could be as affordable as a smile. If you're in business and you walk into an establishment and someone smiles, it makes all the difference, and that's PR. It's that affordable. So for SMEs, investing in PR is really investing in the relationships with your stakeholders, and that's your investors, your customers, your business partners, and just focusing on that, getting people to come back to your brand and having that brand loyalty and consistency as well, because people will keep coming back to a brand that makes them feel good.
Okay, on that note, you've said some very interesting thing, and I really want to bring the gentleman into this. Jonathan, do you have any response or feedback to what Chishima said?
Yes and no. I mean, look, at the end of the day, marketing is one of those industries where people love words and phrases. Because marketing is all about talking. Marketing, advertising, PR, the whole lot's all about talking in some shape or form. And frankly, as you were saying, PR and the various forms of marketing that do involve two-way communications, I don't entirely agree with your definitions. I think it's, but that's by the by. But to my mind, the phraseology is not important. Actually, what's more important is, are you covering all the main aspects? And I agree completely that the main aspects are, do you know what your brand is? Do you personally know your brand, understand your brand, and can you explain to someone else through whatever means, be it advertising, PR, whatever means, what that brand is and what that brand does, and can the person understand it? And then finally, are you picking the right person to actually invite to understand that brand in the first place? And those are all deeply interconnected, and it doesn't really matter what terminology you use, but a lot of it boils down to that. Are you talking to the right person for what you want to say? Do you know what you want to say? And do you both understand what you're actually talking about? And in fact, it's much like talking to in-laws in my experience.
Yeah, maybe if I can pick up from what he just said.
Go ahead, sir. We're getting very practical now. I love it.
From what he just said, he actually touched on an issue of, do you know who you are talking to? Now, basically in marketing we say target market. Do you know your target market? If you're going to make handbags as your business, who do you want to sell those handbags to? Is it the manager at an office, or the director at an office, or a manager, or is it a lady at a market somewhere? Okay, you need to understand that. Who are you targeting for your handbags? Who are you targeting for your vegetables? That if you say that I'm going to sell vegetables to a busy lady who works and stuff like that, then it means that you must now look differently on how you're going to package those vegetables. Because if you're going to sell those vegetables to people who are working in the banks and you're going to deliver them to the banks while they're at work, it means that you must pack them in nice plastics, make sure they look nice, and they should be able to, when the people buy those, they should last and not get damaged. By the time they go home, they're still fresh. But if you're going to take the vegetables to the market at Soweto, then you don't need to pack them in those kind of plastics and do all sorts of things, because the people at Soweto will just buy them the way they are. And which means that the lady who will buy them at the bank will buy them at a premium price, because you've added value to the vegetables. You've done something to the vegetables that make them different from the ordinary vegetables, and therefore you can charge a higher price. Just for you to deliver to Barclays, that again is a cost. So your vegetables price goes up, as opposed to when you take a truck and you take it to Soweto market. So you need to understand your target market. Who is your customer? What is their income level? Are you targeting people with money, the high earners? Are you targeting the middle income groups, or are you targeting the low end market?
So
once you understand those, it will help you know how to sell your product.
Actually, sir, that's a very good point. You also said something else that was very important. That is, know how you add value. to your target market. I'd like to go to audience questions, but before then, just very briefly, I want to throw one last thing out at you for this session. And this is addressed to all of you. So I'm an SME. If I'm an SME, and I don't have a massive budget, I don't have a lot of money, what is the one thing with the limited money I have that I could do in order to build a strong brand? In less than one paragraph, we'll start with the lady. Please, what is the one thing you would say an SME should do to build a strong brand on a budget?
Okay, so I'll first start by touching up on something that came up with the gentleman, was the target market, right? So now the target market, in my experience, and this is me putting it out there, especially when we go into Q&As, I find the target market very tricky in Zambia specifically, because as per experience with our agency, PR Girl, we are venturing into lifestyle brands. So lifestyle and luxury brands. And we find it very difficult to get that specific target market without offending the market that's not targeted. And then you get, I like that you said, because the truth is you approach corporates like Barclays and you say, we have this premium product and it's a lifestyle brand and this is our target market. But because I think 80%, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like 80% of brands that are heavily marketed in Africa are mass market brands. And because the banks know that, and it's because the corporates know that, when you have a lifestyle brand, it's almost like they're offish, because maybe they don't want to venture into marketing a product that would backlash on their brand. So the issue of target market, I'd really like for us to explore that, because as a young entrepreneur and as a young professional in communications, it's very tricky. But touching up on SMEs.
Yes, that's
Yes.
what we want to talk about.
And this is where, if you've listened to the gentleman very carefully, they're focusing on the technicalities and they keep talking about value addition and money and sales. And I think the other thing that you came up with was the technicalities of the steps. What are you saying? What's your brand, first of all? What are you communicating about your brand and to whom?
So
Important.
What's
For
the one
SMEs,
thing I could do?
okay,
to
so for
move to
SMEs,
that?
I think you need to follow those steps. You need to establish your brand identity. You need to know what your brand needs to communicate, to who, when, and how. I think if you can crack that, you already have a good communications plan, regardless of whether it's advertising, marketing, or PR.
Awesome, I love it. So target market, who, when, and how.
And how.
All right, Jonathan.
Actually, pretty much the same, honestly speaking. The only thing I would add to that is the one thing SMEs are scared to do, in my experience, is make mistakes. And that's human nature. We have a fear of, ooh, I don't know, I could do this, and maybe it's not going to go right, maybe I'm going to waste my money. And one of the biggest mistakes in my experience that SMEs make is saying this is not working too soon. Even corporates make it. Our banking friends, we both know only too well, are very quick to can something without actually giving it proper attention. Most importantly, without looking at why is it failing. And I'm going to give you a very concrete example. Recently we carried out an exercise for a client in lead generation. Low cost exercise, below the line, directly targeted using social media, directly targeted to a very specific group of people identified by age range and specific location, various other things. And the project failed. And the client canned it. And they didn't want to hear why it failed. They were just like, no, this is not working. Why did it fail? Because the person, one out of the two people that the client identified that should be handling the leads was rude to their clients and half the time didn't pick up calls, which we knew and identified. So what I'm talking about there is actually the first thing as an SME you should look at when something goes wrong is not, oh, it didn't work, I didn't sell my car, therefore this advertising campaign didn't work. No, you should look at Why didn't it work? And that goes all the way back to the P's and so on that we were talking about earlier. Was your price right? Is your product right? Is your placement right? I have in the past dealt with a client who was selling, to your point, S-Class Mercedes-Benz. The client insisted on putting small black and white adverts this size in Sangwapo, and then wondered why he didn't sell them. Okay, you're selling a luxury car, a high-value proposition, and you only want to pay 20 kwacha for your advert. Frankly, you ain't never going to sell. Really. So, from my viewpoint, look, whatever you do in marketing, whatever you do in sales, PR, promotion, when it goes wrong, the first thing to do is to not stress about the fact that it's failed, but to say, actually, is it a very small thing I could put right? And I'll give that example going back to my original example. If that customer had simply removed that person from the project and put a different person on, they would have probably passed the target level that they've been looking for in business. A very simple change that would have cost them nothing, except somebody's ego, which is often the stumbling block.
Okay, so ask why. If I did X to market or to improve my marketing and sales, if it doesn't work out, why did it fail? How can I correct it? Or if it worked, why did it work?
Yes.
What did I do right? And how can I do it better going forward? Mr. Kombe, what is your one thing that an SME could do?
For SME, like any other business, the critical thing in business is quality. Okay? Ensure you get your quality right. Whatever product you are making, whatever service you are doing, make sure that you offer it at a very high standard. And when we talk about very high standard, we're not saying spend a lot of money. All we are saying is that make sure you have the right people. If you're running a service industry, have the right people with the right skills to do the work. Okay? Don't go hire cheap labor to do the work and then they produce bad quality service. Make sure you've got the right people. If it's a product, make sure that the product is of very good standard. Because the biggest marketing, which is free marketing, is word of mouth. If I come to your restaurant and you cook very nice chihuahua, if you run one of those restaurants where we cook African food, if I enjoy the food and the environment, I'll go tell my friends. And my friends will tell their friends, and word of mouth. Before you know it, your restaurant is full. You didn't spend any money to invite those people to come. But people will tell you about their experience with your product or your service. And this is very common, especially when it comes to service industry. Those of you who run hair salons and certain services, you know, customer satisfaction. When a customer is satisfied, they will go tell others. And that is your first marketing tool, which is free. Now, if you run that restaurant and your food is not good, I can assure you that when I go out and my friends, I'll say, today I went to that restaurant, they don't even know how to cook the chicken, it was hard, the shima wasn't shiny, you are dead.
Absolutely.
No matter how much advertising you do, if people come and they eat the shima which is not well cooked and village chicken, whatever which is not well cooked, they will never come back. So the cost of you to retain customers becomes very high. So that is why, for me, one thing I'll tell you is quality. Make sure you offer a quality service. Okay? The complaints, rejects, what? And we invested a lot of money in that product. What we came to realize later on was that the raw materials we were using were not very good quality and the tissue was hard. So our customers and other people told us, I can't buy your tissue anymore because it's hard. You know, it's like paper. Tissue is supposed to be soft.
It's a sensitive...
So we decided, because we had problems, we stopped manufacturing the tissue We still maintain the machinery. We told the team, let's go back and replan where we get our materials. Let's go back, replan how we package it. Let's go back and replan the name. We went back and re-strategized everything. And we found a good source for very soft tissue. And I'm sure most of you now, you buy Essence tissue in the supermarkets, in Spar, Pick and Pay, Game, and everywhere. You'll find Essence tissue, Essence serviettes, Essence kitchen towels, Essence diapers.
As far away as Sobwezi and Kasempa can attest to that.
Yes.
So it was a quality focus, sir.
So we changed, and what we did was we changed even the name. We changed the name from OT, which people didn't need to understand, and we named it Essence.
Essence.
Okay? And today, it's everywhere in the country. So when you are an SMEC, like he said, if you make a mistake, go back and ask yourself, where have I gone wrong? Okay? What can I do right? Don't give up the business. Maybe you just outpriced yourself. All you need to do is look at your price.
Sir.
That's all.
We have to go to audience questions because our time session is almost up. This was very interesting. Thank you, panelists. Just very quickly, I would love to get at least 2-3 questions from the audience in. The gentleman over there, if you could just stand up and give us your question.
Okay. My name is Dexter, and good afternoon to you all panelists. Okay. My question is pertaining to direct marketing, and specifically for a business-to-business model type of business. So I would like to find out if someone is engaging in some direct marketing and is trying to, let's say, convince your companies to come onto a platform or buy a product or service, what key information did you expect to hear for you to be convinced? That's one. Then what are the frequent reasons for doubt or rejection as to why you reject or doubt someone's offering a product or service? Then as well,
one question, sorry, we have to do one question per
okay, just those two questions. Okay. Key information that you expect to hear from someone who's trying to sell product or service to you, and frequent reasons as to why you doubt or reject whatever it is that they're trying to sell to you.
Maybe can I get a clarification there? When you say direct marketing, are you, because direct marketing is broad, are you implying that you selling products maybe online? Are you selling products online and people can buy online from you? Or are you delivering these products to people's homes?
Okay.
Or what are you doing?
What I'm actually doing is selling advertising space.
You're selling advertising space?
Yes, digital online, digital advertising space. So if someone's going to come to you, what key information would you expect to hear for you to be convinced? And what frequent reasons would arise that would give you some doubt or rejection? Just from a general perspective.
I think Jonathan will take that.
Yeah. Let me answer this very it's a very wide question, and you've got some specific details in there, but let me make this really simple. This actually boils down to something we've all talked about. Get your target audience right, get your product right, and get your facts right. The things you're talking about in your communication, to give you an idea, one of the things I do in my agency for all my clients is they send me all the marketing proposals they receive. So chances are your proposal will end up on my desk. Okay? Number one, straightforward. Are you pitching the right product to the right person? I'll tell you now, 85% of the proposals of those kind of natures that we receive, B2B of any kind, actually, the person is, what the SME tends to do, they look at business and they think, who's got the most money? Not who needs my product, but who's got the most money? Who's got the biggest billboard? Who's got the sexiest TV ad? And they take the proposal to them on that basis. They don't do any research even about what the business does. And I will give you an example. I handle a beer brand that got a proposal from a right-wing Christian group. They hadn't even done any research and thought, Actually, what would your churchgoers feel if they rocked up at church and all they saw was adverts for beer? It's not going to work, is it, really? Let's be realistic.
Depends what kind of church.
Well, indeed. But, you know, my point is basically that's the first thing that tends to get things thrown out is actually you're not even pitching the right product to the right company. And then just one other thing very briefly on that, don't oversell yourself. Okay, you know what, we're in the industry, we know when you lie, and I'll give you an example. One client received a proposal from somebody and they gave examples of their work. 3 of those projects had been done by me and not by the person who was claiming to do it. So they fairly hung themselves high and dry. So my point is, don't lie. We know when, you know, people in senior business, they've got experience. Be honest. Say it on you.
Sorry. Thank you very much for coming for this panel. Sorry we couldn't get to the questions in depth. We'll remedy that in the second session. And I wish you all a good day and hopefully still have fun at Birmingham.